Hey guys, how you doing? Cell here, and today we're going to be talking about the Microsoft acquisition of Bethesda. This has been going on for about a year. However, ever since it was first announced, they had to go through the whole process and everything, and the two companies were acting independently from each other. So Microsoft didn't have any input on Bethesda or back and forth. So one of the big questions that has been out there is once Microsoft gets control, our game's going to be exclusive, and Phil Spencer had this to say.
So I'm going to try to be as clear as I can because that's what I just think it's fair. So obviously, I can't sit here and say every Bethesda game is exclusive because we know that's not true. There's contractual obligations that we're going to see through, as we always do in every one of these instances. We have games that exist on other platforms, and we're going to go support those games on the platforms they're on. There's communities of players. We love those communities, and we'll continue to invest in them. And even in the future, there might be things that have either contractual things or legacy on different platforms that we'll go do. But if we're an Xbox customer, the thing I want you to know is this is about delivering great exclusive games for you that ship on platforms where Game Pass exists. And that's our goal. That's why we're doing this. That's the root of this partnership that we're building, and the creative capability we will be able to bring to market for our Xbox customers. It's going to be the best it's ever been for Xbox after we're done here.
Okay, so I have some notes here on my iPad I wrote down during the actual thing, and we're just going to rush through it real quick. And I'm going to talk about what I noticed back and forth between the whole meetup that they were doing. So, first of all, going back to what Phil just said, he said particular games that are under contract. Now, I would have to assume that that's definitely Deathloop, that's definitely Tokyo Wire, but I think that's also the upcoming Indiana Jones game. I can't see that Bethesda would get the go ahead, or Machine Games would get the go ahead to do an Indiana Jones game. I'm pretty sure Disney would want that to be multi platform to get the most revenue as possible out of that franchise as they could. If that is an Xbox exclusive, that would be huge news. It'd almost not only be like Microsoft finally getting their own Uncharted in a weird way, but if that was actually true, I mean, that's what Uncharted is based off of, right? So I'd be kind of curious what it is, but honestly, there's been some good indie games, but the majority of them not been too great. And Machine Games is kind of a weird pick, but they did a great job with Wolfenstein, so I'm going to keep the faith on that one. So the other thing that came out from this is all games that Bethesda does will come out on Game Pass. Even the stuff that's going to be cross-platform, I think that's a huge advantage to Microsoft because if they have Game Pass, getting somebody to pay $15 a month for a bunch of games, as opposed, and Bethesda's one of those companies on there. It's always going to be there, just like Microsoft. I think that's a much easier sell than saying, "Hey, on this system over here, it's going to be $70." So that's a good advantage for them right there in the Game Pass service. The other thing I noticed about what Phil talked about is how this is about launching games exclusively on Xbox and where Game Pass service exists. So I think they're leaving that pretty open ended in case somehow, by some miracle, they're able to get Game Pass a little bit more unified to work across on iOS devices. I think they're leaving it open ended in case for some reason like Nintendo says that they want to like have Game Pass on there or something, even if it's just like the streaming part of Game Pass. But I did notice how he left it pretty open ended there. So when it comes to the question of like will id or id Tech engine be used in Microsoft games, Phil pretty much said that he's open to that. He's going to allow them to collaborate back and forth. I'd be really excited to see what kind of advice the 343 would get from somebody like id or Machine Games that's already had success in making like really good first person shooters. The one thing I'm kind of wondering on id's end is it was pretty adamant about using Vulkan as the backend, and now they're owned by Microsoft. Does that mean that Vulkan's gonna take the wayside for DirectX? I'm pretty much gonna say that's almost a sure thing, and I wonder how much that impacts the actual performance of idTech, because I know that they had designed this whole new version of idTech like completely around the Vulkan renderer. So I don't know if like Microsoft's gonna force them to like go to DirectX now, or if they'll allow like the current version of like idTech to just work on Vulkan, and then when they go to like a new version, then they'll like build it around DirectX. That's something I'm curious about, but that's something nobody's talking about that kind of piques my interest about this whole deal. If you notice something very specific about this roundtable, Phil is very careful to always call Xbox a platform and not a console. And I think that's the major shift we're seeing between Microsoft here with this whole Xbox generation. Yes, the box is very cool. I love my Xbox. It's really nice. I have very few problems with it. But I notice that they don't really refer to the console so much as the entire platform now. So I think it's pretty safe bet to say that we're at that point now where Xbox is a platform including Windows, the console, streaming, stuff like that. And having said that, I never really got people that were like against Microsoft putting games on Windows and saying that kills exclusivity. Need I mind you that Microsoft owns Windows. They create Windows, and that's a push for people to go onto Windows. So why wouldn't they use that? That never makes any sense to me. I don't think there's this like mass, huge appeal of like people all of a sudden. It's like, oh, I'm not going to get a console because it's on PC. There's people out there like me that just want to play on a console. So when asked where Phil would like go visit first after this acquisition of all these studios, including like Bethesda Studios, ZeniMax Online, Tango GameWorks, which is like their Japan studio. He said he wanted to go to Japan and he wants more of a presence in Japan. And this really got me thinking because there has been lately, Sega has split their company. And I'm kind of wondering, so they split like their amusement division and their games division. And I'm really kind of curious right now if there's something going on with Sega. The other one I think that could happen and is possible is I think like right now Capcom is valued at about $4.1 billion. And I could see like an acquisition of something like Capcom, but for some reason my little funny bone is vibrating right now in my body that the next acquisition he's kind of focusing on is to get more Japan first party studios together for the Xbox. Which is interesting to me because one of the things that just happened on the PlayStation side that really has actually made me even less wanting a PlayStation 5 right now is the fact that they shut down Japan studios. One of the things I really loved about the PlayStation brand was games like Ape Escape, Gravity Rush, Eco, Shadow of the Colossus, a lot of Japanese style games. Some of these were produced through Japan Studio, some of these were actually first party through Japan Studio. And to see them close that down, they say they're reorganizing it, but I think the rumors seem to be becoming more and more true every day that it seems like Sony's making more of a push for a European audience instead of a US audience. And that really worries me because as much as like I like the Uncharted series and stuff, I really did feel like I was done after 3 and I don't need to have another Uncharted experience. And it seems like Sony is now, instead of like backing like some of these like weird projects and stuff, they're going more for the safe bet. And typically the stuff that's like the safe bet on Sony platforms is not what piques my interest. So if Xbox was able to, or Phil Spencer was able to build up more of a Japanese audience on this system, that'd be great, but I'm not going to hold my breath either. I think I have to go to Nintendo for that now, and I think that's pretty much what Nintendo is at this point. Okay, and lastly, some of the games from the Bethesda library are coming. There's about 20 right now, and there's this new feature called FPS Boost, and what it is a lot of these games have, if you're a PC gamer, you know what an INI file is. And an INI file can dictate like what the engine settings are, how fast the engine's running, things like that, like FPS and all that. And you typically set that based on what the hardware can do. Well, with these older games coming over and being able to run on a much more powerful GPU, they're doing a thing called FPS Boost. And what FPS Boost does is what the INI file basically tells DirectX is like, hey, this is a 30 FPS game. Well, now they're able to go into DirectX and do an override and say, no, now it's a 60 FPS game and it runs at a higher frame rate regardless of what the game's INI file is dictating. And I think that is extremely cool. I've already been playing Sniper Elite on here and it's got the FPS boost on there and it runs at 60 and it's great and it looks just as good as the PC version. I love it. But this is a very cool feature that they're adding to the Bethesda games and to the back catalog of library and all that. And to see stuff like Morrowind running at like 4K is really freaking cool. So, yeah, really neat stuff. I hope we see more of it. I know the new update coming pretty soon is going to like allow people to choose if they're going to use auto HDR, turn it on or off in backpack games, or turn FPS boost on and off. So this is a pretty cool little extra thing that they added there. So I'm pretty excited to see what happens in the future. Like stuff like Wolfenstein Doom has been some of my like favorite games. I bitch about the new Doom a little bit here and there because I don't like a lot of platforming in it, but it's still a great game. I still have a lot of fun when I play it. Sometimes I rage out a little bit from the platforming and have to put it down, but it's just a fantastic company. They're one of the reasons I'm really on board with this. You can't argue with the company that made Skyrim. And I'm really excited to see how some of the current studios at Microsoft work with the studios at Bethesda, like Arcane and stuff, maybe on like new projects or some of the suggestions. They did say one of the reasons this went through, and one of the things I've been worried about recently since this has gone through is, does this mean we're going to start seeing companies like Sony, like Nintendo, instead of like trying to have third parties come in and make games, like they're going to try to create their own exclusives just by buying third party studios? And I think the answer to that is this is not a typical thing. This happened because it seems like Microsoft and Bethesda have been working very closely for years. And Phil even said in this that when they come out with a new console or whatever, Bethesda's already the first like studio outside of Xbox itself that they actually go to and get opinions on the new console and stuff like that, and get the thumbs up or thumbs down or whatever. So it seems like they've had a relationship for quite a long time, and that's really what fostered them really wanting to get into this merger or this partnership together. So I think the answer is no, this is not a typical thing, but I do think Microsoft is going to go after another giant company here pretty soon. So we'll have to see. I think we're going to see something about that probably around summertime, where E3 would normally have taken place. So anyways, you guys let me know what you think down in the comments down below. Especially you PC gamers, I'm curious, are you excited for this? Because one of the things I think that's really cool about what Xbox is doing right now, what Phil's doing, is they're allowing games to go over to Steam and be sold on Steam. And the only reason I think that's happening is because you can kind of dictate what platforms on Steam you want to sell to. And I think they're just always going to dictate on Windows. As long as like you're buying the game on Windows, it's promoting the Windows platform, and I think they're going to be okay with that stuff over on Steam. And so I'm curious what you think. Do you think this takes exclusive games away from a console, or do you think this is a better overall growth for the entire Xbox platform? And are you excited to see a lot of stuff come over? And are you especially excited to see that Bethesda games are not just going to go away on the PC? So anyways, and for you PlayStation guys out there, I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are too. So thumbs up, thumbs down, hit the bell, hit the subscribe button, all that stuff. I need to get better at how to say that, and bye before this becomes more of a train wreck.